Hi, friends, and welcome to the Legend Fiction Show. I'm joined by an author I have never met for 10 years, and I've heard of him. His name's Declan Finn. He has written a rash of novels. Declan, how many novels have you written, actually?
40.
My God. Okay, so you're up there. I have to understand, first of all, how you do it. I want to hear your origin story and introduce you to our Legend Fiction community. So, what is your latest? What was your first? And then what is your latest novel?
Well, my first novel is called White Ops. That's the first one I wrote, and it started out as Babylon 5 fan fiction, if you have audiences who are that old and can think back that far. There are people who I say Babylon 5 and they go, is that a rock band? But no, I started writing fan fiction. I wound up getting addicted to writing. For the record, I didn't even know what fan fiction was at the time. It's like, this is my private thing. And, I have adapted it to my own thing because after, the first book or two, it spiraled.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 6, 7, outlined to 13 books long. Is any of this look anything like the TV show? Nope. That we passed that a long time back. But, and God knows how many rewrites, because
Mm-hmm.
I was writing in 1998, though. You can do that math. I was 16, had a lot of energy, so, ooh, cool. I can do this for 36 hours at a time in summer. Yay. Granted, I lived off of a lot of coffee then. The first published book is very standard science fiction murder mystery. Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
mystery at a science fiction convention. Two
Mm-hmm.
different things. Um, and my latest book is going to be coming out probably on Friday the 17th of October.
Oh, wow.
It's part of Blaine Lee Pardo's Land and Sea series. If you don't know, Blaine Pardo used to write for Battletech. He did like 20 books, and somebody discovered that he was to, the right of Mao and decided, well, we have to stalk and cancel him. And, they got him fired. He immediately bounced back with his own series. I'm book 10, and he's pumped out 9 books in 3 years, something like
Wow.
that. So I'm happy to be a part of that one. And that'll be what, my 4th book this year.
Amazing.
So
What's your usual turnaround for a novel? Length of a novel and then turnaround?
uh, 60 to 90,000 words, which I'm told is standard for a lot of independent fiction these days. I can write anywhere. My fastest novel was 60,000 words and 3 weeks. Yeah,
Are you self-published or do you or trad published?
I'm a mix. I am
Okay.
independently published, and I
Okay.
am with by a small press. My St. Tommy NYPD series, which is my longest, is
Hmm.
currently through Tuscany Bay Books, as is my White Ops series.
Okay.
But and Bayan will also act as a vendor for a bunch of my books, so
Okay.
depend on how you want to count that.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Do
no,
you write full time? I mean, with that kind of
oh yeah,
volume,
yeah,
amazing. So let's see, what's more of your origin story then? Like you mentioned 16 in late 90s. I mean, you're
yeah,
writing.
yeah. Well,
What
I didn't
got you
know.
into it at all?
Like I said, I started with an idea I couldn't get out of my head for Babylon 5. I
Hmm.
wrote it down. Like good fan fiction, it's okay, we're going to fill in some gaps, some background material, blah, blah, blah. And like I said, it spiraled. Within 15 months, I had written 6 books.
My goodness.
Yeah, I probably wrote about 1 million words by then. Now, I kind of screwed up
Oh,
because
really?
I was young, I was stupid. Uh, and I once cornered Jim Bayan at a convention, and I said, to pin him down on, well, what's a good length for a book? After he hemmed and hawed about, well, whatever fits the story, he said about 100,000 words.
Hmm.
Okay, sorry, he said about 400 pages, and
Okay.
that's the mistake because I heard 400 pages. It's like, okay, fine. You open up any book, it's single spaced, right? So I took 400 single-spaced pages of novels, which, since everyone wants 1-inch margins and double-spaced, all of my books were 800 pages.
Okay.
So, like I said, it spiraled, and then after that, I just couldn't turn the brain off.
Yeah. Wow.
So it was just easier to if I'm going to have characters living in my head, I'm going to make them pay rent.
What was the reaction to like everybody around you suddenly discovering you'd flipped a switch and become a writing maniac?
My father was happy because I was treating it professionally.
Okay.
I was trying to write as often as possible on
Hmm.
a schedule, and I had even taken a college degree in
Oh, really?
history.
Okay.
Yeah, because if I take the college degree in history, I'm going to have more stories, and good God, some of these stories in history I can't make up. I can't write some of these down because they're
Okay.
going to be written down as too unbelievable.
Okay. What's your favorite? Hit us with your favorite,
Oh, good God, there's so
if that's
many.
possible.
Hell, look up Audie Murphy or Alvin York, which were so unbelievable they had to tone it down for Hollywood.
Who were they? What are we talking about?
Oh, oh, you don't know?
I
Okay,
don't know.
cool.
Enchant us.
Alvin York, World War One, good Tennessee boy. After his father died when he was young, he went on drinking binge, rampage. He became the town bully. He could shoot the hands off of a clock because, grew up poor, and ammunition is expensive. So you hit what you aim for, period. And
Mm-hmm.
today he would be a sniper. You know, he got religion. He lost the alcohol. He was going to no longer get into fights. World War One happens. Draft happens. After he's struggling with being a conscientious objector, eventually gives in, goes to the front. He ends up in a shootout with some Germans and basically single handedly takes out a machine gun nest with
Gosh.
a
Well,
30 rifle that
okay.
he used to hunt with. So it's like, you know, gee, all these Germans used to have heads. What happened? And along the way, when, he took them prisoner, he's leading them back to, Allied lines. And through a lot of trickery and just plain, fake it until you make it, he ended up capturing about 200 Germans because if you go by the
Well, they
movie
just
version,
surrendered to him?
they surrendered to him. He ambushed several of them with, hi, you're going to speak in German. You're going to tell these guys to just come along.
Hmm.
And let's face it, by the end of World War One, everyone's tired. So when it's, hi, you're surrounded, give up. All right, fine. But this is after he, murked a whole bunch of them with his rifle. And
Hmm.
gee, they're all missing heads now. But then fast forward World War II. Audie Murphy is 5'3". He never grew much above that, if I recall correct. I don't think he broke Tom Cruise height. Found his way into the military at a young age. Also grew up poor. Also grew up know how to shoot, and he was basically first one into the action and basically had plot armor. And in both cases, they were so unbelievable that the the officers around Alvin York went out to investigate the scene of the action, and the machine gun nest shooting at Alvin York had been so close, his canteen was like 2 feet away from him and riddled with bullets. So it's like, yeah, he was close to the machine gun fire. That's not an
Gosh.
exaggeration.
Wow.
Found the bodies and everything with with Audie Murphy in World War
Hmm.
II. He had officers coming out with him because, yeah, this is too unbelievable. And nope, believe it, believe the hype. And in both cases, both with Alvin York was alive when they made the movie about him with Gary Cooper. And again, they had to tone it down. And Audie Murphy was not only alive when they made the movie about him, he starred in his own movie about him because nobody else had the brass balls for it. But like I said, you can't make some of this stuff up. You go
I'm sensing a bit of St. Tommy comes from figures like this.
a little bit with St. Tommy. That was a college course.
Okay.
At St. John's University in Jamaica, Queens, I had a course on Christian spirituality and mysticism taught by a priest, Father Caserta. Hopefully he's still breathing. And one class was on charisms and
Mm.
the miracles around saints, wonder workers. And after smelling evil, levitation, and bilocation, my thought was, you slap a cape on one of these guys, and
Yep.
congratulations, you've got a superhero
This
comic.
is hilarious. That was exactly my response when I was in that class at Christendom.
And so I thought, okay, my first idea in the class before I left the classroom was, all right, so smelling evil, that's good for a cop.
Mhm.
And if you got a cop who's a saint, your first target has to be a possessed serial killer. Because, of course, why not? And so I was off to the races over 10 years later because I still had the idea kicking around. I was working on multiple projects, and my publisher, who had taken a bunch of my Catholic vampire fiction as well as my Catholic thrillers, and we can get into those another time because it's a long story. But he took my Catholic vampires, the Catholic thrillers, and said, okay, we would like an original IP for publishing, for the publishing house. Okay, fine. Well, I've got these three ideas. Which one do you like? He heard St. Tommy NYPD, and we were off to the races on that one. And it's, 12 books later, it's maybe I should wrap this up. And
Have you? Have you wrapped it?
I wrapped it up, and then
Okay.
I wound up with a crossover novel. So it's like, yes, I'm on Lucky number 13 in the series. I should probably do one or two more. I'm not superstitious, but I've got at least two more in my head after he died
Amazing.
in at least one book. So he dies a few times. Bilocation is a little rough on him. It's
As
like,
one does. Yeah.
yes, we're fighting the forces of darkness. I'm in 5 places at once. One version of him walks away.
Yeah. Which one survives? One walks away. Have you seen that show Evil? I
I
think it's on
tried.
Peacock.
I
Tried?
tried
Okay.
getting into it. There were 1 or 2 episodes where it just got so weird.
Mm. Yeah, well,
And
it does that.
when Michael Emerson playing Satan, because Michael Emerson plays a great Satan, sorry, he plays a wonderful evil nutcase and so wonderfully disturbing. When they started building towards a plot line where Michael Emerson is making a whole bunch of incels into a terrorist group, it's like, I'm out. Somebody had decided in Hollywood that incel was the word of the day. I forget why. Might have been a writers' conference, but that's the point where it's like, you know what? No, I'm done here.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of it was cute, but just couldn't get past maybe 5, 6 episodes.
Okay. What was what are some things that you have now learned about partly yourself as a writer, but also the craft of writing? Almost 45 books into it now. What are some things that either come naturally or you now do differently that you didn't know 10, 15 years ago?
Step one, know something about guns. I grew up in New York.
Okay. What did you not know about guns back then that you do now?
So I let's put it this way. I knew that if you point a gun this way and it goes pull the trigger and goes bang, it's semi-automatic. You hold down the trigger and more bullets come out, it's a fully automatic. And that's about
Mhm.
all I knew. Trust me, I didn't know anything about trigger snobs. I didn't know the difference between, what is a race gun? Well, it's a gun for going fast, usually it's competition. I knew there was a brand called Glock and a brand called Smith& and Wesson and maybe a few others. Also, gun people are very, very picky because I would literally copy and paste from users' manuals, and then I'm told this information is wrong. It's on the
Right.
website.
Right.
Yeah, well, sometimes manufacturers lie and say their products are better than they are. Shocking. But also, I didn't know rifles are easier to shoot than handguns because look, if your sight rate, if your rear target and front target are this far apart, it's harder to hit the target. If they're this far apart, it's easier because more accuracy. It's
Mhm.
math.
So what are some things that um across this journey, what are some of the strangest things that have happened to you across writing all of these novels? Like the only other people I can think of is like what, in terms of volume, what, Stephen King and Sanderson and Kuntz.
You probably need to read a little bit more in the independent sphere. I
Hmm.
think is it Richard Fox or Richard Partlow? One of them has like book 80,
Amazing.
which it's like, I hate you. But things that surprise me. Usually when people can pick me out of a lineup,
Yeah.
that's very, very strange. I've had people come over to me and go, hey, I read your blog. Yes, I read all the books that your book publisher puts out. I'm happy to hear this. things like that. Things that surprise me. When people can actually pick me out of a lineup,
Mhm.
and what surprised me, how petty other authors can be. The worst part of writing is marketing. I knew
Mhm.
that about a decade ago because, gee, if I wanted to be out and about and interacting with people, I would not pick a profession where I lock myself in isolation for 7 hours a day.
Practice not talking to other human beings
Right. Actually, it's more,
professionally.
yes. And so that's annoying. Unfortunately, there are people who will decide becoming a troll online is how I'm going to get views and clicks and people will buy my books. And I hope it actually works for them. I don't want to be that guy.
Right, right.
It's like, I have one self insert character who is way more interesting than I am the further he gets from me, which isn't everybody, where it's, yes, I used to have a temper and well, now this character has it. And I don't like it when I fly off the handle, and getting into, internet fights is one way to make me do that. I
Mhm.
can't imagine living like that for hours on end online.
Yeah.
So, so things I've learned. A, marketing's a thing. B, rage marketing is also a thing, but not for me.
So what do you do now for marketing? Either is it with the publishing contracts that you have, or do you blog a couple of times and you just stay focused on the writing and maybe you don't need the marketing?
I try to stay focused on the writing. My latest marketing campaign was step one, have a Kickstarter.
Okay.
I never actually hosted one by myself. My last publisher, Silver Empire, did that a few times before they folded. They were killed by COVID. And a lot of times I will relentlessly post on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it this week, because my idea of marketing is jumping up and down, waving my hands, going, book, book, book. So, I don't know. I'm not even sure I still have the handle on that. I'm making up for marketing skills with volume.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Amazing. What is so now I'm curious, what is some of the over the last decade, again, of all of this output and traveling around and meeting with people, I'm assuming there's some book signings in there. What's been one of the weirdest or worst things that's ever happened to you?
Yeah, I've had book signings at, do you know Dragon Con?
Hmm. I know of
Yeah.
it. I've not been to it.
I've been there a few times. I've had signings a few times. The fun part is when they stick you in the back room somewhere where, yeah, you're in the back room with a bunch of indies and there's still a lot of room, a lot of space. However, up front, they have stuck three New York Times bestselling authors. So even if people want to find you, they're going to have to fight through a crowd with a machete just to get there. So
That
that
was
was
probably
depressing.
depressing. Yeah.
It was. It was. Also fighting with Barnes and Noble over, I'd like to have my books in your store and have a signing. And I got a response of, do you know who we've hosted here? And after 5 minutes of the rant, I just hung up on them because clearly they're not going to want me.
Wow. Speaking of
Now,
Barnes and Noble, what do you see if you pay attention to the whole evolution of the trad publishing, self-publishing space, the places, book retailers and all of this? Do you have a sense of how it's changing? And is there anything that gives you hope or just makes you hang your head and focus on volume?
oh, I just focus on volume because, good Lord, you walk into a Barnes and Noble at random and it's a toss up between, oh, look, this Barnes and Noble is 50% manga. In their book section is 50% manga and 50% regular fiction,
Hmm.
trad pub. And but the back half of the store isn't even about books, it's toys, or it's we're going to make a bigger Starbucks. Now, while in Texas, I've been at a Barnes and Noble that was the way I remember them. Two stories, tons of books, many different sections. But that's in a mall, and we all know how well malls are doing. We've done our best to kill them with the internet. But
So,
yeah,
last
mm,
couple of questions for you.
sure.
What's next for you? You working towards anything, or is it you've got a couple of new novels that you're focusing on, or
Well, I've got four different ideas I'm focused on. One in particular, I've already got an outline for. Hopefully, it's going to be the next book with Blaine Pardo in Land and Sea. After that is going to be mostly an action comedy. Yeah, since I've landed in Texas, I've been following a lot of different people on GunTube, and There's a place in Las Vegas called SHOT Show
Okay.
where gun manufacturers come to gather professionally. And all I could think is, well, if you make it one good Antifa riot during SHOT Show, we can have a comedy. It might be a little messy, but once I figure out how to do that, it
Yeah.
should be hilarious.
Yeah. Amazing. I've got to ask, how do you deal with the maybe you don't, but perhaps the burnout of constant writing? Do you ever have times where you just need to step away and just not do it, or is it now so habituated and just such a comfortable thing to slip into and to keep flowing with, or
No,
is that even
it's
an issue?
no, it's not an issue. It's more like an addiction. Like I said, there are days I wish I could turn my brain off. The
Hmm.
best I can do is when I'm reading somebody else's book and I'm making notes for reviewing on Upstream reviews, which is a different kettle of fish. But no, it doesn't really turn off. It's mostly a matter of A, what can I steal from current day? Or in the case of the St. Tommy books, okay, this is stupid. How do I take it out? Full reduction to absurdity.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, I did that 10 years ago, and now it's political platforms. There's nothing so demonic that it can't become a political platform, apparently.
I did want to come back and ask you about if you have any dreams for the future for yourself, but
Well, dreams for the future,
yeah, well,
well,
let's go there. Dreams for the future
it's
for yourself.
it's more writing. I want to see what happens when a big name author winds up
Hmm.
attaching my name to his series. Hopefully, it
Okay.
makes other people read my other 40 books,
Hmm.
45 books, as opposed to sinking him, which would
Right.
be that's the nightmare scenario. But no, it's writing more books. Granted, if I wind up tanking Blaine's series somehow, that's the point where I just quietly retire and nobody ever hears from me again. It's like crap. But
But best case scenario, do you plan to continue just writing indefinitely, or
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
s-
Robert Parker, the guy who
yeah,
created Spencer, literally died at his type computer keyboard. And that's
amazing.
pretty much how I would like to go.
Yeah. You ever dreamed of a TV series for St. Tommy? Would it ever interest you?
Well, I have a script for Hellspawn, and I had considered sending it to Angel Studios under the heading of, okay, fine, I've got a script. Let's see if you guys have the balls. And then I realized, oh no, 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 they're just a distributor, which made no sense to me. But what's his name? Neil McDonough? Neil McDonough? The blonde guy, bright blue eyes, always plays villains.
Oh yeah. I know the actor, I don't remember the name, but that sounds
Yeah.
right. Okay.
He's also making his own movies these days. It's like,
Ah, yeah.
okay, maybe I can send it to him and he can have his wife play Tom, Tommy Nolan's wife, and that way
Hmm.
he can actually make out with her. No,
Sure.
actually, nobody has any time in my books for making out or romance. It's like people are too busy shooting at them.
Right, right, right. You mentioned last question here. You mentioned reading and co-opting the best points and elements from other books and retconning them or doing them your own way. What are some novels that you've read or authors you've read recently that have surprised you and you really liked them?
Start with Shami Stovall.
Okay.
She has a book called Kronos Warlock, I think. It's
Hmm.
basically Harry Dresden meets Groundhog Day.
Wow, that's not compelling at all.
And she's got book 3 in that series out already. Carl Gallagher and Nathan Lapointe are fun no matter what books they're doing. Nate Lapointe is Catholic fantasy, gonzo fiction, because he'll do things just because they sound cool. Where, he's got a space epic where crash lands on a planet and it was terraformed by an eccentric billionaire who thought dinosaurs were really cool. So there's an entire planet full of them.
Oh, nice.
And with Carl Gallagher, I don't know if you've ever read David Weber.
I haven't. No.
Okay, fine. David Weber does space opera. He's got a 25 book series of someone called Honor Harrington. It's basically Lord Nelson's career, but female and in space.
Hmm.
Well, Carl Gallagher did that in 3 books, and he's currently working on, fighting 1984's empire and, system-wide galactic empire, and it's fun.
Amazing.
But those are just 3 people off the top of my head. I of course read, John Ringo, Timothy Zahn, standard fare in genre fiction, and Since I'm currently running a review website, it helps to try to read as much as possible from as many people as possible. And
Amazing.
I'm focusing a lot on independent authors, not only because I know some of these people and I like their books, but because I keep hearing there's no fiction that isn't made by communists. It's like, all right, shut up. I know you're wrong, and here's my entire website with like 700 reviews saying you're wrong.
So where can people find you online, Declan? Let's leave them with your website.
You can find me on Substack, Declan Finn. Find me at Substack with Upstream Reviews. Find me on X at Declan Finn Books. I'm sure I'm on Instagram. You type me in on Facebook. You just type in Declan Finn, you'll trip over me. I think I'm one of the few people who isn't some kind of Irish soccer player.
Okay. Well, you also plan to join us for the Legend Haven Con, so I'll drop a link in the description. Folk can check it out. Hopefully, Sunday morning, we're going to chat about future of fantasy, which basically is, well, it's just a panel to talk about where fantasy is right now, what it's doing, what it's not doing, where we can have more fun with it, all of that. I'm sure you're going to have a ton of opinions. But since Legend Fiction is a community of authors and storytellers who maybe dream of a life like what you have created for yourself, what advice would you leave or encourage with other people who have a dream of writing a story, want to get into it, and aren't exactly sure? What would you say to them?
On the one hand, make sure you have a reliable skill. I don't care if you're a lawyer, an electrician, a plumber. Trust me, if you are geared to writing, you're going to end up writing. If you're an electrician, you'll probably end up killing people with electricity, but so did Godzilla. So was Godzilla. And if you are going to write, keep to a schedule. I don't care if it's a half hour a day writing a page. Congratulations, 365 days, you've got a novel. But keep it consistent. And if you're going to be a professional, you want to be a professional writer, act like a professional.